Recently, a very important conference was held in the German city of Munich. Germany hosts this conference from time to time, and its name is the Munich Security Conference. At this conference, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and the US Vice President J D Vance stole the show. If I put it simply, they dominated the event. Let's discuss that further, but first, let's understand the Indian perspective. At the Munich Security Conference, Dr. S. Jaishankar addressed the Europeans bluntly. He pointed out that Western ambassadors in India often interact with political outliers, individuals who have no connection to democracy or mainstream politics. These ambassadors invite these people to embassies, promote them, and amplify their voices. S. Jaishankar then made a powerful statement. If an Indian ambassador did even a fraction of what Western ambassadors do in India, you would not tolerate it. A clear example. Germany has previously made multiple statements about Indian domestic affairs, such as the legal case against Arvind Kejriwal in the liquor scam. India even summoned Germany's deputy chief of mission and questioned why Germany was interfering in India's legal matters. Germany's double standards have been evident for a long time. In the past, during issues like Article 370 and CNRC protests, European and Western ambassadors frequently commented on India's internal matters and tried to dictate what is right and wrong for India. Now, at a time when the US itself is calling Germany an authoritarian regime, India's foreign minister openly declared, "If we start doing what you do, you won't be able to handle it."
Every country has its mainstream politics. It has its outliers. Okay. If I were to look, for example, at how much Europeans, Westerners reach out to outliers in those societies, if I were to look at what do Western ambassadors do in India, if my ambassadors did a fraction of that, you would all be up in arms. So I think there are double standards here.
During the panel discussion, someone asked Dr. S. Jaishankar, "But surely you agree that democracy is in danger?" Dr. S. Jaishankar strongly disagreed and stated, "In India, democracy is not just surviving but thriving." He then held up his index finger and said, "Look at my index finger, you can see the ink mark. This is proof that I just voted in an election."
I begin by sticking up my finger, and don't take it badly, it's the index finger. The mark you see on my nail is a mark of a person who's just voted. We just had an election in my state, just over. Last year, we had a national election. In Indian elections, roughly 2/3 of eligible voters vote. At the national election, electorate of about 900 million, about 700 million voted. We count the votes in a single day. Nobody disputes the result after it's announced. And if you look, and by the way, from the time we started voting in the modern era, 20% people more vote today than they did decades ago. So the first message that somehow democracy is in trouble globally, worldwide, I'm sorry, I have to differ with it. I mean, right now, we are living well, we are voting well, we are optimistic about the direction of our democracy, and for us, democracy is actually delivered.
Dr. S. Jaishankar highlighted how India just held national and state elections successfully, with a record-high voter turnout. 2/3 of India's 900 million eligible voters participated in the elections. We counted the votes in a single day, and no one disputed the results. More people vote in India today than ever before. Dr. S. Jaishankar criticized Western nations for treating democracy as a Western concept while supporting non-democratic forces in the global South whenever it suits their geopolitical interests. He stated, "The West has historically promoted non-democratic governments in the global South while claiming to value democracy at home. Even today, they continue to do so."
All big countries are unique to an extent, but we would certainly hope, to the extent we think of democracy as a universal aspiration, ideally a reality, but at least an aspiration. It is in large part because India chose a democratic model after independence. And it chose a democratic model because we had fundamentally a consultative, pluralistic society. Now, there was a time, and I have to say this in all honesty, where West treated democracy as a Western characteristic and was busy encouraging non-democratic forces in the global South. It still does. I mean, in many cases, I can point to some very recent ones, where actually everything that you say you value at home, you don't practice abroad.
As the conference progressed, the entire discussion began to feel pointless. Why was this conference even organized in the first place? Dr. Jaishankar exposed Western hypocrisy on democracy and foreign interference. J D Vance then delivered a harsh truth about free speech in Europe. When it comes to J D Vance, international media, whether it's CNN, BBC, or any other outlet, is focusing on one headline: J D Vance stood in Munich and openly criticized Europe. He attacked Europe on free speech and migration, warning that if European nations do not act, outsiders will come and take over Europe. Vance's statements were so harsh and bitter that they deeply offended the Europeans. In response, Germany's Vice-Chancellor Olaf Scholz stood up and openly criticized J D Vance. Additionally, German ministers questioned how J D Vance could claim, while standing on German soil, that Germany is a dictatorship or an authoritarian regime.
And expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered.
Germany is now extremely angry. So, what do you think? Is Germany really an authoritarian regime or not? I would like to hear your viewpoint. J D Vance, a very important and harsh statement in Germany. If American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding us, you can survive a few months of Elon Musk. You must remember Greta Thunberg, the climate activist. She used to make a lot of statements. Americans listened to her. Alright, she was a European girl making statements about climate change. She was constantly in the news. Now, J D Vance pointed out that European leaders are complaining about Elon Musk. Many European lawmakers are even suggesting that Musk's platform, X, formerly Twitter, should be completely banned in Europe. Then he also said that in Germany today, many political groups, whether far-right or left-wing, are not being given a platform. And many voters are being told, your voice doesn't matter. But if German democracy and European democracy survives by telling millions of voters that their thoughts, concerns, and aspirations are invalid and unworthy of even being considered, democracy rests on the sacred principle that the voice of the people matters. There is no room for firewalls. If you think you can censor the internet, block access to certain areas, and only show your citizens a particular viewpoint, then democracy will not work. Americans had to stand in Germany and say this. This sharp criticism has shaken Germany and exposed deep flaws in how Western nations handle democracy and free speech. So again, overall, you can say that the Munich Security Conference was a disaster. German ministers had to repeatedly defend their government and their democracy. And perhaps next time, they may not even invite the US Vice President to this conference. And Germany's concerns aren't over yet. Most probably, Trump and Putin will have a summit soon, and we'll have to see how Germany reacts to that. Honestly, I believe that under Emmanuel Macron's leadership, we may soon see the emergence of a European military. Eventually, Europe will stop depending on NATO. From the way the Americans' tone and language have changed, Europe has realized that it's time to take care of itself. And Europe will change. Because when you have to maintain an army and protect yourself, the way you keep Europe as a garden will not remain the same. A lot of things will change in the future. And obviously, one of the most important upcoming geopolitical events is the Trump-Putin meeting. That's it for today. If anything happens, I'll make an updated video on that. Now let me ask you an question. If you know the answer, comment the option below. If the answer is correct, I will give an heart to that. Now the question is, who publishes the Climate Risk Index? Option A. German Watch. Option B. Open Society. Option C, World Meteorological Organization. Option D, ISRO.